Syria's new leadership says it has formed a committee to investigate the clashes between its forces and supporters of the ousted regime. The clashes are the deadliest in the country since rebels toppled the Assad regime in December. Hundreds of people from Syria's Alawite religious minority have been killed, along with Syrian security forces. Germany is among the countries that have condemned the violence. It's calling on all sides to end the fighting.
Security forces deployed in Latakia after days of clashes on Syria's coast. A war monitor says over 1,000 people have been killed since the violence broke out on Thursday, when armed men loyal to former President Bashar Assad ambushed government security forces. DW could not independently verify the death toll. The attacks spiraled into revenge killings in Syria's Alawite majority towns, carried out by armed supporters of Syria's new leaders. Witnesses described scenes of lootings and mass killings.
People were slaughtered in their own homes, people from all sects. Today I got shot at because I was filming. I told him, "I'm filming you, take the car, but I'm filming you, just so you know." He cursed me and then shot in the direction of our house.
Over 100 of the state's police and security forces were also killed. Bodies found in a mass grave in Qardaha.
What happened was very painful, and at the same time it was a harsh thing on the entire Syrian people. May God have mercy on all the martyrs.
Despite calls from Damascus for unity, sectarian tensions remained. A gathering mourning casualties from both civilian and security personnel, interrupted by pro-government demonstrators who chanted hate speech against the Alawite minority. Syria's interim leader has now announced a committee will be investigating the deadly clashes.
We will hold to account anyone who is involved in the bloodshed of civilians or harming our people, who oversteps the powers of the state or exploits authority to achieve his own ends.
Many hope holding those responsible accountable will help put an end to the cycle of violence unfolding. However, the recent bloodshed has only heightened doubts over Shara's ability to maintain control over all the different factions under his command.
For more, I'd like to welcome Muzna Dureid, a Syrian human rights activist joining me from New York. Welcome back to DW. Now, there's been widespread condemnation around the world to this violence, most recently in the last little while from the US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. He's blaming what he's calling radical Islamist terrorists for massacres of minorities in Syria. I'm interested, what do you make of that? Does that line up with what you're hearing?
Yeah, thank you so much for hosting me today. Actually, there's no doubt that Syria is suffering from radicalist and jihadist groups that are on the ground, and that the Syrian government right now trying to deal with them and to save the country from their any attempts to have like a confrontation with the civilians. But honestly, it's just like what Syria needs now. It's just like a more engaged, direct engaged with the Syrian government to build the institutions, to build the Syrian army. This is like one of the most important ask, and also to lift the sanctions, because with the current situation of the sanctions, Syria, it's the third severely sanctioned country in the world. So without lifting the sanctions, nothing could be done to train the army, to form the army in a good way, and also to put more like a work on the ground to support this institution and to ensure that they are also they support and follow the human rights principles and all like international conventions. As well, also what is needed to repatriate also the former ISIS combatants and like also members of ISIS in Syria. This is also like these former and foreign ISIS members, they need to be repatriated from Syria to provide Syria with like a stabilization and relief from this threats as well. Syria is facing now threats from its neighbors, like including Iran and also Russia, and this couldn't be done without having like a direct engagement with the Syrian government and also the civil society on the ground as well.
Yeah, so you've outlined what you think needs to happen to ensure political stability in Syria. Do you see a way forward for the various religious and ethnic groups in Syria right now to be able to trust each other so that they can live in peace?
Yeah, of course, it's going to be like a long pathway for us. Just like we suffered over the last 14 years from mass human rights violations, including the use of chemical weapons and so many, and also the torture of prisoners in the detention centers. So this is what's happening now. It's Assad legacy. It's like what Assad fueled in the country, including having its remnants in the country, and this is what led now for this a bloody backlash between the government security forces and also the remittance of the regime, who's still located in the coastal side of Syria. So moving forward with this, it's just we need more work on reconciliation, truth and reconciliation, and also working on transitional justice, including what happened in the past, what happened during this weekend, to ensure that all people, all victims and survivors will know it's what happened to their beloved ones. Also to provide the truth and the relief for the families of missing people, including the survivors as well.
Thank you so much for your time. That's Syrian human rights activist Muzna Dureid speaking to me from New York.